1 year ago, I was sick a few times, was going through a lot of stress and had been going through a lot of stress. And finally, I think it just caught up with me and I lost my singing voice. It was frowned upon that I was not content just staying home and cooking and cleaning, or, that was just kind of like, well, why aren't you satisfied? Like, I'm like, I'm a striver, and so I'm going to strive for something. I cannot give up on my life because I have been trying to do something this way for almost 20 years, and it's failing over and over. Anything can be a chance to destroy you, or it could be like the biggest springboard for a trajectory for your life.
Tiffany, thank you very much for joining me on Success Matters podcast. I was intrigued by a statement that you made, which was that I lost my voice. So what was that all about?
Yes, I've recently begun saying I lost my voice, and that's when I learned to sing, which is very funny because I think I was singing before I was fully talking. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up just singing, and probably the longest phrases or sentences I first strung together were all through song.
Okay.
So that's always just been something I've done and loved and had a natural ability at, like a lot of people. But then when it comes to singing and music, I went on and went into the university for a vocal performance degree. So like opera singing.
Oh, wow.
um, and just had a lot of really amazing opportunities because of that growing up, singing for governors or singing in pro sports stadiums. So yeah, a lot of people get those opportunities, but not everybody does. And but mostly singing was, if you've ever read the book Boys in the Boat, and they're talking about finding their swing when you just know you're doing what you are meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Every part of you feels alive. It's like this vibration that you can feel in your feet. It's
Yeah.
just what you do. It's who you are. And that's the way singing has been for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that was very much dampened for many years. And then last year by the summer of 2024, so about 1 year ago, I was sick a few times, was going through a lot of stress and had been going through a lot of stress. And finally, I think it just caught up with me and I lost my singing voice. And even my voice right now is much lower than it normally sounds.
Okay.
So I thought it's going to come back. It's like a cold, it'll come back. But then it never came back. So I did finally I live in Oklahoma, and I got into the state's one of the best laryngologists for singers, and am now had a scope, and I have this muscle dysphoria of the larynx. So there's certain parts where all of that memory, how your brain does things automatically, is just
Mm-hmm.
gone. And a lot of that's due to stress and holding tension. And so I'm working, and have been for the last 6 months, to restore most of my singing range. I can talk in this range just fine, but I was also a soprano one. So this Queen of the Night, Mozart stuff, those
Wow.
notes are all gone. So, so it's been a real challenge and very emotional at times.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about a story of my voice and my life with song.
Okay. So you were one of those people that was brought up onto the field singing the national anthem in some cases. Is
Yes.
that right? Yeah. Okay. That's
Yes.
cool. That's great. That's a
Yeah,
great honor to have, isn't it?
it is.
And opera, I mean, I don't know, opera is not necessarily something that young people tend to kind of get into. So how did you find your way into opera as the vehicle for your voice?
That's a wonderful question. I think because when you have a very strong propensity and much potential, um, you're just pushed in that direction. Those are the best singers in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the most embodied type of voice, where you literally are getting out of the way of your voice. And it's amazing how this really correlates to life with finding your voice, and you just have to get out of the way and stop
Yes.
trying to control things and focus on on alignment with your mission and your vision for life, and things just start to flow. And that is literally what has happened with my voice, and the lack of being able to sing right now is the stress. And now I'm trying to fix it by controlling, and you just can't do that. So it's a big retraining. So opera was more of, well, the best singers, this is how they sing. And so
Mhm.
I was put that way. I went to school on a scholarship, and but that very quickly changed because I knew that I didn't want to be a professional traveling opera singer. Um, and like you said, music degrees actually take an immense amount of maturity. And I went to college at 17 and was not mature, but I did fall in love and did get married instead.
Oh,
So
okay.
quite sure if yeah, that was so it's interesting. So I was very distracted and knew I wanted a different path for my life instead of being a
Right.
professional opera singer.
Okay. So you've mentioned a couple of times that stress made you lose your voice. What was the source of that stress and what caused that stress?
Um, well, you could say it was a lot of things. So it was nearly 2 decades of since then. And I wouldn't say or blame one thing. I would say it was the lack of maturity that I had to decide who I wanted to be, set those boundaries, and stay in alignment with the vision I had for myself as a
Okay.
as an autonomous human, even inside a relationship, but um didn't have that maturity and started life kind of when you start, you kind of take all of that embodiment with you as you progress.
Hmm.
And I think just after many years of living out of misalignment, um, with what I was really feeling and really just pretending and not being a full, authentic, whole being. Um, I think the best way to describe it is, when you feel like you're about to cry
Yeah.
and you feel it right here.
Hmm.
You know
Okay.
that feeling?
Yeah.
Um, really, our voice, Dr. Keats, who's my vocal therapist, he says our voice is a reflection of what's happening on the inside of us.
Right.
And you can hear that if you're intuitive. You can hear when somebody's pretty sad, if you're listening, or super stressed. But I would say ultimately, if I were to put it into a package, I would say just a lack of vision, um, and a lack of alignment with what I knew the potential of life could be, marriage could be, what I could be, and just always missing that mark.
Right.
And so I think there were a lot of details in there, but ultimately that is the cause.
Okay. So you married young. That's the starting point, if you like, of this. And you were telling me when we prepared for this that it was quite a deeply religious community that you were part of. So was that something that also added to this mix of not being able to be true to your inner self?
Mhm. I think, and this is not to there's a phrase that we say, "Throw out the baby with the bathwater." We're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
doing that. But there is a danger inside a worldview where everything that comes from you is wrong or selfish.
Hmm.
Um, and if certain emotions or feelings are not in alignment with who you should be, um, then you should just fix those outward things. They're they have those outward emotions or feelings or dissatisfactions are not a indicator that some boundary is being crossed, some standard is not being met, or we're meant for more. It's more of an idea of just don't be angry, be peaceful, be content, and be happy. And that's really how I thought I needed to be, was mortify the flesh. These are all religious terms. You just repress those things and
Right.
replace them with the fruit of the spirit, which are
Hmm.
all wonderful things. But we're spiritual, we are emotional beings. We have a lot more to us than just bioreflexes. And all of those emotions are just indicators and clues of what's actually happening. And when those clues aren't being met, it's like the red light in your car, check
Yeah.
engine light. You don't want to throw away those opportunities to reflect and to learn about yourself instead of just saying, "Oh God, please take away all these thoughts and feelings." That is always going to end in catastrophe.
Hmm. Right. And so how many times that red light flicker on your engine, as it were, that you were not necessarily ignoring, but, you were trying to deal with in the way in which you knew how to deal with at the time?
Precisely. I do appreciate that because sometimes I don't realize I don't view things now the way I did then, and I really was acting out of the best of my ability at many
Yeah.
times in life. Um, I would say immediately when conflict arises when you're in a real relationship with somebody, and those little indicators are opportunity for growth and for connection, and they were never received as such, and just a bad thing. So a lot of blame and a lot of guilt immediately set in at that age, thinking, I am all the problem. I am, you know, whereas women are emotional beings, and we come slightly dysregulated when it comes to hormones and all of these things. Not that that's an excuse, but men are typically or can be the more stable one. And then also when you take a biblical principle of men and women's roles, they're supposed to be. So um, there's so much in my story. I see things from two views. I see things more just from a psychological, like, I don't even want to say secular, just people type view. And then there's a whole nother layer that comes on when you're looking at something through a lens of the church, or a lens of theology. And that kind of heavy, that makes everything more heavy and
Yeah.
even raises responsibility levels even higher. And so I think people, whether they come from a religious background or church background or not, can definitely relate, because I think this is a human experience, what I experienced.
Hmm.
What kept me stuck longer was these ideas of I just need to pray more, read more, memorize more Bible, teach more classes, um, homeschool my kids, all of these
Right.
things. Those things never got into alignment by doing that.
Mm.
So, mm,
So as you were talking, I was thinking about a conversation I had recently with a friend of mine. We were discussing societal rules, and this is my interpretation of kind of what you just said there. Was it could be the church, or it could be just the neighborhood you live in, or it could be just the friends you grew up with, or it
mm,
could be a family structure where
mhm,
there are these societal rules that are there. They're almost like unbreakable rules that exist for some reason. They've come about for some reason, and that then shapes how your behavior is meant to be, or what you can and can't do, or what you could or could not be as well, right? There's so many nuances to this that there's many layers around that, and so it's not necessarily just one. It's not necessarily the church or a particular religion or a particular sect. It could be just the fact that you've grown up in a particular neighborhood where the expectation on you is whatever that expectation is, and it could hold you back, or you could break free from it.
mhm. That's very, very true. This is not an indictment on the church. I've not I don't even want to go there. But
Yeah.
what I did realize is by having an ideal of what I should be and how that was felt impossible to achieve even after 15 years of striving and of um, consistent effort, uh, things didn't change, patterns didn't change, because essentially we were looking and living more on this outward surface of uh, how we're supposed to act.
Right.
Um, and we missed so much real human connect. Like, I, in my marriage, missed so much human connection because, well, I'm supposed to be this way and you're supposed to be this way. And it seems like you're not doing that. So this is your fault. Or um, me not really being able to articulate what's wrong. but knowing something is wrong and I cannot be passive. I'm not an avoidant. And so it has to be addressed. And I can't rest until this is satisfied. And then, of course, we know when that doesn't happen quickly, when repair doesn't happen properly, um, if you know the Gottmans, the four horsemen set in, and contempt builds, resentment, a lack of respect, and it's just a slow, numbing
Hmm.
end to any relationship when that
Yeah.
happens. Mhm.
So how did you break free from that or make the change? What were the steps you took? What was the breaking point? Maybe how talk us through the process you followed to realize that this was happening and do something about it.
Mhm. Well, there were several things that happened after we lived in Germany. Um, and we lived there for almost close to 6 years, which was a wonderful experience, but very distracting. And really, you could kind of ignore what has always been and function in a kind of, we have a nice, tidy life. We lead worship at church. Um, we have these things, these are our friends, and this is what our kids do. And so you're just in a pattern of life. And
Hmm.
then after COVID, in 2021, we were able to move back. And then all of a sudden, we're back. And I'd always been homeschooling a few or all of my kids, and finally got the kids in school, which was wonderful. And then I need a job. I finally get to have a job, and I'm very ambitious. And so I've always had like photography businesses, or I taught music, piano and voice for a while. And but a real building vision of a career or some sort of something that made me feel like an autonomous person would have been so wonderful for me as a wife and mom. But I didn't have that, and that's okay. I'm so happy that when my kids were little, I was able to be at home, but there was a point that I should have gone back earlier, and for multiple reasons, and also because it was discouraged. I didn't um, actually get a real job. Finally came back, and I did find a job, and all of a sudden, I was making a salary, and that was quite liberating. Um, that was really amazing, to have something of my own, to be making real money, and being involved in something outside of my my sweet I love, this is not an indictment on being a mother or anything. I loved
Hmm.
that, but
No, of course.
as a human, you need something outside of yourself, even if it's you need other things besides your children. And so doing that just exacerbated what especially the previous 7 years had, the foundation of the last 7 years or even 15 years. Um, and I just all of a sudden was very much invested in myself for the first time and realized I kind of am just, I let it go. I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm not, I was discontent and I did not communicate that properly. Um, I would say I was acting in the best of my ability, but did not have the tools to set boundaries for myself, which is something I've actually just learned was the problem. Um, I didn't even realize inside that structure of, the husband is my leader, so to speak, and this is our church family. I didn't realize I can actually set boundaries for myself the way I want my marriage to be and the way I want to conduct myself. And when you're looking outside of yourself for the answer, which
Hmm.
is what I always understood, was this power is going to come from outside of me,
Right.
and from God or from, and I'm not discounting things like this, but I gave over my agency because I believed I was consistent in my belief. And beliefs have consequences. And
Yes.
therefore, I lowered the standards of how I wanted to conduct myself. I lowered the standards of how and what I could expect in marriage. I lowered the standards of, even self-discipline, because it just keeps lowering if you are not constantly realigning and keeping. There's a great scripture, actually: without vision a people perish. And that is exactly what my family structure was
Mm.
without vision or leadership. So
Yeah. So that's a really good point. Without vision, people perish, because
Mhm.
that's what drives us forward as human beings, right? We have a vision, we want to do something, and we want to make the world a better place, whatever it is that we want to do.
Yeah.
And having that vision gives you some drive and motivation to do something about it. Whereas
Mhm.
if you don't have a vision, as you say, your world becomes grey, and it's just it's almost
Mhm.
like a downward spiral as a result of that, because you're not moving forward. You just kind of like
Mhm.
plateaued, and nothing else is happening. So yeah, so you had this vision, but you found that your vision was not in alignment with where you were, if that
Mhm.
kind of is how
Yeah,
I'm
and
interpreting that. Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know if I had a very clear vision of what I wanted, but I knew that we needed direction, and I wasn't satisfied with doing the day in, day out without a very clear, this is where we're going. We have shared goals. Like, we're working towards this. Um, I said earlier, I, I am fairly ambitious. I'm very ambitious,
Yeah.
and I need to be striving for something. And so without these outward goals or shared missions, or even if it's like we're saving to go here,
Hmm.
that's even materialistic, but there was nothing like that. And it was just, we're living another day. And there's no real strong force for me to lean on or have support. And so it was just like the sails blowing meaninglessly in the wind.
Mm.
And, and of course, my children were massively they were the most important thing and still are the most important thing. But, you know, the whole goal is for me to get them to go. And then I have, a minimum of 50 years left to live after they're gone. So what am
Yeah.
I going to do? And it was frowned upon that I was not content just staying home and cooking and cleaning, or,
Mhm.
that was just kind of like, well, why aren't you satisfied? Like, I'm like, I'm a striver. And so I'm going to strive for something. And I think this is the key that I came back to or thinking of a minute ago. If you are a striver personality, if you know you're made for something, and everybody is, but everybody has different missions or callings or
Mhm.
aspirations. If there's something in you that needs to build or needs to strive for something, you are going to strive whether you have direction or not. And you're going to be miserable if you don't know where to put that energy. As a
Right.
person like me, I feel like maybe there's not as many people that have this ache, and it's not necessarily a gift, because it can make you very discontent if you do not have some direction. Um, but to take an extreme example would be Grant Cardone. I listened to one of his books, and he was always a striver and an incredibly extreme personality,
Mhm.
way more on the scale. And because he didn't have direction in his life, he got obsessed with, drugs and alcohol, essentially, because he was repressing this need to be directional with this obsessive ambition, in a sense. And then he turned his whole life around when he decided, I'm going to be obsessed about this thing, about this career. And it totally turned his life around. And he beat all of the statistics by being the same striver, but having direction. And
Yeah.
so that is not something I had until, the last 3 or 4 years.
Mhm. How easy was it, though, to communicate that and to say, okay, I'm now following this path, and this is the direction I'm going in?
And that is probably the most difficult thing I've ever done. I would say
Hmm.
it's harder than the 100-hour work weeks that I realize I work.
Yeah.
Um, I don't keep hours. Building a business is insanely hard, but I think honestly, mothering helped me because it's the day in, the day
Yes.
out. This is repeating. It doesn't have an end in sight. You just keep doing the
Mhm.
same consistent work. So that's a huge benefit, I think, actually, being a business owner now, that mothering gave me. Um, but going back to changing changing your identity is the way outward people would explain it. The family and the culture I was in, the friend groups, this life that we had built. Um, I think most people would say that you're changed. You've totally changed your identity. And I have not. Um, I have not. I just came in alignment with what I'd always known.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and always strived for, and then realized I cannot give up on my life because I have been trying to do something this way for almost 20 years, and it's failing over and over. And I'm not in alignment with the main person anymore. Um, and that there's nothing inherently wrong. There's a lot of gifts to not liking change and being super content and never kind of wanting more or striving for growth. Um, but that is just innately, I've never been that way. Even as a kid, I was never that way. So, um, I would make sure you're very much in alignment with the person that you marry. Don't get married just because you have all those dopamine feelings.
I think that also, of course, yeah. I mean, as you grow older,
Mm,
your vision, maybe your vision becomes clearer, maybe it doesn't, maybe life's experiences, you do change, right? And some
mm,
people have a particular way in which they want to live, and others have a
mm,
different way in which they want to live. And sometimes that starts to diverge and
mm.
doesn't converge, right? And so, it's an interesting thing when as you go through life and all these changes that life throws at you, there's a point which I think a lot of people get to, and this is where coaching, comes into play. Is I've hit 40 now. What do I do? Or I've hit 50 now. What's my next thing? Some people might call a midlife crisis. It's not necessarily a midlife crisis, a recognition, as you said, that what I aspire to, my vision maybe is this, but my alignment is that. And then how do I bring my alignment back to what my vision is? And what do I do about it with all this structure around me, which could be a partner and family and kids and all of that. And yeah, I want to strive for that. So what do I do?
Right. Well, I would say a massive, in fact, because of my experience in marriage, the way to prevent this in the most healthy way would be a true, authentic relationship.
Mm,
If somebody doesn't know, if you are growing out of alignment, you are not in connection. You are not living in marriage. You all the vows are over.
yeah.
Once you really don't live in alignment, which is um, you know, promising to protect and uphold and cherish and care for, um, your marriage is over.
Mm,
Maybe you're still married, but that is over, and you must quickly come back in alignment together saying, whoa, I don't even know, I don't know you. Like,
mm,
what, if you're seeing, and this is something I had a realization of, I was realizing these people and in my relationship, they saw me for who I was supposed to be, what role I was supposed to fulfill.
mhm.
And that's what they loved.
Yeah.
That is what they loved. And but because for some reason, the struggle, a lack of maturity, a lack of responsibility to myself and my own boundaries for how I should be conducting myself and how I should communicate, how I expect to be treated, the standards, how I want my family to be living, those things were just, I kind of acquiesced my power and my agency. Um, so I just kept living. They say fake it till you make it. Well, I never made it. It's like,
Right.
um, you're just living out this role. And then I realized these people loved me for that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said, I'm not that, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
There was just, it was a shunning. I was just completely shunned.
Right.
Um, and nobody thought to ask, we have known you for decades. Okay, set aside my emotions for a minute. I've known you and considered you part of my family, my daughter, my sister, my best friend for years and years. What happened?
Mm.
But in one thing that is a downfall of the church is everything just has a big stamp on it. That's sin. And
Right.
I'm not negating there's right and wrong at all. There is.
Yeah.
And I did definitely do wrong in this process from the very beginning. Everybody is not perfect.
Mm.
But as soon as I didn't fulfill that role and said, I'm not going to do this role, there was no like, hey, I'm very angry at you, but I love you. And so I want to know how you could actually do this thing, divorce your husband. How could you do this and be who I thought you were? Or what happened to you? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And people don't like to ask those questions. They don't like to ask those questions. It it brings too much black. It brings too much gray. It brings fault on other people where they don't want to put fault. And it mostly, I think deep down, causes them to reflect on themselves. And whenever people see a situation and say, oh, I could never do that, or oh my goodness, I can't believe she did that, they're imagining themselves in that situation and how horrific that would be. And it is really amazing being 2 or 3 years past all of this. Like, I'm okay. I'm like more than okay. I have never been so excited about the future that I get to create.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I wanted to create that. I wanted to create that with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but there was never a vision. There was never like, we're going to aspire to do these things together, where there was no vision. And we were just living in the structure that we were supposed to. This is not an indictment also on my previous partner. Like,
No, of course.
no, not at all. We really grew out of misalignment, whereas anybody wise would not just keep the peace, but they would stay in alignment to have a real marriage. And I used to just think, oh my goodness, they've been married, 45 years, 60 years. That means nothing. Most women stay in marriages because they have no way to make a living for themselves. It's, half of marriages end in divorce. I think very few are actually labeled as happy marriages. And then maybe even, I would have said, I'm happy. I have on the outside, I have the picture I was supposed to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that means happiness. That does not mean fulfillment. So there were definitely fulfilling things about my life. Like always, always. My kids, no matter how stressful being a parent is, was something I'm so grateful for. And I'm so grateful I have them. So I just said a whole lot.
I think something you said there about the picture of what a perfect life looks like, or words to that effect, is exactly why I set up Success Matters, because people post these pictures on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever it is of what their perfect life looks like. But is it really perfect? Is it really a fulfilled life? And I don't believe it always is. Sometimes it may be, but behind it, there's something else. And so that's the whole point of this podcast, is explore those journeys and what sits behind that. And so now, as you say, it's been a couple of years. You've kind of moved off. What are you doing these days then?
Well, it's very interesting. So, all startups, I think 95% go under. So if you have a startup type job, which is the first job that I had, lost that job, then went into a recruiting and staffing company. And then I realized this is not, I wanted super flexible. I needed a super flexible remote lifestyle.
Right.
And and I realized this is coming out of alignment with me and my needs. And then also with the companies, and I really respected the leadership of that previous company. And I said, hey, I don't want to take another paycheck. Like, this is not in alignment anymore. Um, and so that was January 4th of 2024. And I think the next day I bought 16 different domains and got a LLC and founded New Global, and have been building that the last year and a half. So that's been an excellent thing. Just ownership is something that I really value. And there's just something about, I could go into a sales position or some other position and make a lot more money immediately. Um, but I cannot give up ownership of building something.
Right.
That I just can't. So, and most people quit. Most people quit, and that is why a lot of startups that are not needing funding, um, that's why they fail. Is because people quit. I'm not quitting. So,
Right.
um, so that that is a matter of success. But I would say I'm able to keep pushing through and doing the really, really hard thing over and over again because I've kept doing these hard things for a long time. You know,
Right.
my marriage was not ever easy, and it was a constant cycle of very bad communication and a lack of connection.
Mhm.
I'm equally to blame there, but we just did not have those tools to fix that. and and then eventually things are just, they're done. They've just been done for a long time. So that was very hard. Homeschooling is so hard. And COVID forced a lot of people into that, even though I had previously already been doing that. Living in foreign countries is hard. Um,
Were you
Walking
living
away,
in foreign countries through your
yeah,
husband's work
through
and
through
job?
marriage. Yeah, we lived in Germany for almost 6 years, and which was a wonderful experience, but it's not comfortable. So
Yeah.
I don't want a comfortable life. That is,
Right.
I never have wanted that, but I've wanted an alignment and highly connected life.
Hmm.
An authentic life. And so without those things, I would never and was never content. um, and then another thing of success is more, it's just a decision. I will be successful, and the success is how I conduct myself and what actions I choose to take now, not necessarily in the outcome. So I am going to make these decisions to own my future. I am going to make these decisions, even though they're hard, and lose my entire life, and be rejected. And if me not settling any longer, realizing things will not change, if that is what causes me to lose a whole lot of people, that's sad. But it also means that's making space for the new things to come. That's, the plan for your life, which I definitely believe in. Um, and just, I remember just having this decision and a resilient something in there. I don't know if it is a willful decision, but I remember the day that my husband and I separated and we had all of our, mediation done and the paperwork done, which we did through a mediator. Thankfully, we never had to use an attorney. Um, and that was all based on my income, was the same weeks that I lost my job. So I lost my first job and we separated and moved out all in the same week when my support was based on this income that was
Yes.
no longer. So just time after time. And I remember standing there and I went into the Oklahoma unemployment office for the state.
Hmm.
And I was standing there and I'm like, I cannot believe I am standing here. I am standing here. I am on, state help and state insurance. These things for an American, it's different, and because we're not as socialized. Um, Standing there and the same week separating, like changing my home. I stood there in the parking lot and I thought, I'm going to take a picture. And I took this picture, and I can't believe, like, thinking about the resilience that it took, but it wasn't hard. It's just something in me. I will succeed and I will get through this. It's just, I'm so happy something in me could do that. So I took this picture with Oklahoma Employment Office by the side of a road. It was so it's just so odd, and I'm smiling so
Yeah.
big. And so you think anything can be a chance to destroy you, or it could be like the biggest springboard for a trajectory for your life. And the success comes not from the outcome, but from the daily decisions of, what am I going to be today? Am I going to step into my best, highest self right now? What is the next right thing to do? And do that thing. Whether you're with, you have your friends, or you've been completely deserted and you are alone because nobody cared to understand you for years.
Yes.
You just push on and you just go. And knowing that there are other people that actually do that too is very helpful. So if you are listening, there are people like you, even if I don't know you. I just know there's other strivers out there. And
Yep.
that's who I'm seeking to meet and to build this community, especially with my new Instagram page, Find Your Voice with Tiffany. And my two big endeavors in life are your Find Your Voice with Tiffany and New Global. So
Right. But feeling free at that moment by the sounds of it.
it wasn't freedom, but it was just this. It's like it's it's a low point. It's, you came from this and you
Right.
decided to build. It's the resiliency. That's the story, is the
Yeah.
resiliency of, it feels like it took me so long to get to this point of self-agency and vision and having standards for my life that I couldn't be my own advocate. I always thought that my husband had to be. And while that would be wonderful, it wasn't the case for me.
Yes.
So and it is not also, some people are happy with that. But I just have these maybe unreasonable or incredibly high aspirations for relationship and business and how I conduct myself. So,
As you say, you're a striver, and you have a view of what life could be like or should be like. And yeah, some people are willing to give up that agency or give up that vision that they might have. But if it's not in you, it can lead to so much stress and mental anxiety. And as you said, you lost your voice. That's potentially part of that, right? So is it
definitely.
worth all of that to suppress everything, or is it better to break free? And an individual, right, for yourself, I think it's better to break free and be able to sing, right, and do the things you want to do.
Yes, I will definitely sing again. I have faith I will. I don't know that I will, but I
Yeah.
do believe that I will. And my message also of this resiliency is to take back the agency that you have in the situation you are right now,
Hmm.
so you can have no regrets. I wish I could go back and set these standards and use my power that was in me. I was waiting for my husband, or I was waiting for something else
Yeah.
to make a change. I didn't realize I had that. I could have exercised. I could have disobeyed, and not submitted,
Yes.
and taken my agency back inside that situation, um, possibly to make it better. But I think by that point, yeah,
Mm.
it had been gone for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It goes back to what I said earlier, right? There's all these kind of rules that aren't to be broken. As you say, disobey is a strong word, and yet there's these rules that are there, right? That come as a result of often external forces, not even internal forces. I have a tradition on my podcast to ask a previous guest for a question for my next guest. So my previous guest asked, "Is there something special you do to connect with people?"
There are several things that I do to connect with people. And I think we've talked earlier and, connection on different levels. There's just nice. It's wonderful just to have a human connection. Um, and then there's different levels of connection. But I would say the time that I felt most connected to humans is sharing music or singing. Um, and I'll give you two very quick examples of that. Last fall, I was in Florence, and if you go up to the Piazza di Michelangelo up there, um, you can sit on the stairs and overlook the city. And a lot of times there's musicians there. Well, there were hundreds of people, and there was a fun um, singer, and people from all over the world were sitting on these stairs, and we were all singing these songs. And there's something about music and singing that creates connection. But the deepest sense of connection I've had has been while singing, and it was years ago. And I rearranged a ancient Christmas carol and sung it a cappella for a Christmas Eve service. And that singing a cappella with no music and sharing that, and when these are not passive listeners, when you can feel that
Yeah.
it is a vibrational frequency. Everybody is tuned into each other, and it's not even, the beauty doesn't come from the singer. It doesn't come from me. Maybe I was that channel that has created these moments that they've only happened 2 or 3 times, even though
Hmm.
I've experienced it sung many times. Um, the beauty is that it's all the listeners. It's
Yeah.
all the listeners tuning in, and everyone's focus is on a single a single sound wave and the message of that sound. And if humans could come into alignment, we would have much less wars and strife and divorce and heartbreak.
Yes.
and and I think music might be one of the better ways to remind us of that.
That's so true and so touchy. I think, just as you were talking about that sort of frequency, and you're producing that frequency, right? You have, I know you're saying they're not necessarily coming in because of you, but you're the one that's producing that to start with. So that's the thing. And that environment is where people get touched. And for me, music is one of those things that I can listen to a piece of music and I will get tears in my eyes from that piece of
Mm.
music, or I will get goosebumps. And it doesn't necessarily, I can't necessarily explain what it is, but it's just there as a thing. So I really resonate with what you say there with regards to the power of music to bring people together. And yeah, do you have a question for my next guest?
I do. I do have a
Okay.
question. What question do you wish somebody had asked you?
Oh, okay. What question do you wish somebody had asked you? And I think we kind of know from the conversation that we've had that you'd wish some people had asked you questions along the way.
Mm,
Is there a
yeah,
specific question that you wish someone had asked you?
I think a true question, an honest question of how are you, but with specification. So, how are you aligned? How are you aligned with the vision that you had for your life?
Right. Yeah.
And I wish that I had had the knowledge, the agency to ask those questions much, much earlier, um, because our brain will answer those questions for us. They will find an out.
Yes.
Our mind will find an out to stay alive. And that is exactly what I did. Um, I found I found a life preserver and I grabbed on with all my might because
Mm,
I had to live. And so,
yeah.
but we don't want to get out in the middle of the ocean. We want to be in the deep waters and ask those questions to
Yes.
ourselves. And Sanjay, I think I, going back, I wish I had had the knowledge and the self-empowerment to realize I was the one that needed to ask myself that question.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. Well, now you have asked yourself that question and you're on a new journey. So if people want to find out more about what you do, you mentioned your Instagram account. If you can just remind us of that. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, how best should they do so?
I think really Instagram is the best place. I have 2 accounts. I have Find Your Voice with Tiffany. So at Find Your Voice with Tiffany for my very new Instagram account that is scary to fill out because it will have audio of how terrible I sound singing and that progression, which is hard to post. So right now there's not a lot there.
Okay.
Um, and then also Tiffany Lauren Potter is just my private Facebook, but also it's my business. So I'm beginning to just use that as a business account. So either way, I am reachable on Instagram.
Okay, cool. Well, it's been a very fascinating conversation, Tiffany. It's clearly been an emotional journey that you've been on over time. So thank you very much for sharing your story so openly and richly. Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much. You're a very authentic person, I can tell. And really just want to put this out in a very humble way to show success looks very different in many different ways. So I love
Mm.
that. I love what you're doing here. So thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
To find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.